This episode of the Citadel Cafe is brought to you by listeners like you. Visit patreon.com/the Citadel Cafe to find out how you can become a patron and help make this show possible. This is the Citadel Cafe, episode number 337 for Wednesday, November 6th, 2019. My name is Joel Duggan, and the Citadel Cafe is where my friends and I hang out to talk about the geeky stuff that we are into. Joining me again this week is Megan Townsend. You can find her at Megan Townsend on all the social media that matters. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. Don't you sound nice?
I do sound very nice. I have a new microphone.
You do.
I'm really excited about it. It's really pretty.
Yeah, no, you sound great. A little bit of troubleshooting, just to kind of get around some setup stuff this morning. So it took a little bit longer, but that's fine. Now that it's done and we know what we're doing, it's all good.
I know, and now it's permanent. I don't have to borrow my friends anymore. Anytime I had a nice sounding voice on the podcast, I was oftentimes borrowing my friend Mitchell's mic. So I told him to listen. So thank you, Mitchell, for letting me borrow your mic all those times. But now I have my own.
And I have to say that,
sponsored by Cosmic Dancer.
Yes, exactly. So big thanks to Cosmic. But also, I have to say that, despite not having we'll say a plug and play podcasting mic, headset audio is not what it used to be. It's still pretty good, and I can still mess with it. So people may or may not have noticed some of the differences in the past. I know I have. Unless you listen back to back, you might not pick up on it.
Yeah,
but
I definitely notice a different quality in our voices together when I'm on a headset microphone.
Yeah, it's
versus
not,
this one.
Yeah, it's not the Megan versus Megan. It's the Megan versus Joel sort of balance that I notice as well.
Treble versus bass.
Yes, precisely. So, because this is going to be a much nicer mic. For anybody that wants to know what's going on under the hood, we're actually both using blue microphone Yetis. They're USB condenser mics, which are great for people that are just getting into podcasting and you don't want to spend $500 on like a really fancy thing that needs a mixer and all that kind of stuff. And
but it still sounds great. Like, we talked about HalCon last week, and a lot of the YouTubers and the podcasters and Twitch streamers were like, I just use a Yeti because they're a great microphone.
Yeah.
And even this ALB, who does her ASMR channel, she has like a very, very expensive ASMR microphone that has you can see they look really weird. They almost look like they have like two ears on either side, and it's for like when you're recording the sound. If you're listening to headphones, you can hear a sound on one side versus the other. It's not like
stereo.
both sides.
Yeah,
there you go. That's what it is, stereo. Like, there's a word for this. I don't remember what it is right now. Oh God. But no, she was like, someone was asking about this microphone, and it's like a $1,500 microphone. It's stupid. And she was like, overrated. Don't get it. I used it twice, and I saved up forever to get it. And she's like, I hate it. Don't bother.
Yeah,
mics are great.
Yeah, and we, I also run everything through Audio Hijack, which is a really cool application, and that allows me to do for me, I have like a low pass and a peak limiter. I've got a peak limiter on Megan's side as well, and that's just to cover any kind of like pops or peaks or things that happen, because we tend to have a good time and we tend to laugh a lot, and then if we laugh too loud, too close to the mic, then that kind of stuff happens. But this will also make things a little bit smoother in post for me. Rather than trying to balance things out all the time, I should be more of an even keel, which will be nice. But yeah,
I'm so excited.
Yeah, it's really cool.
So pretty. It looks really nice.
That's
like
a
nice
thing.
Copper color.
They're a nice what's what I'm looking for? Piece of kit. Like they're a nice addition to your desk. They tend to look good with everything. And I think did you say copper? You got a different color than me.
Yeah, it's like a copper. So I was looking online when I was shopping around, and this one was I got it on Amazon, and it was the Amazon's choice one because it was the cheapest out of the bunch, which is strange, even though the specs were all the same. Colors end up being a different price, apparently. which I'm not used to. I feel like that's a really weird business model. But
Yeah.
the one I really wanted was like this nice blue one. But it was like an extra $40, and I was like,
Well,
no,
yeah.
that's the color doesn't matter that much. If at any rate, I might just even end up getting a sleeve for it at some point. But I kind of like the copper. It's like a nice goldy,
Yeah. Yeah.
coppery bronze color, so it's not too bad.
Mine's old enough that they only had the one. So it was yeah.
Yeah,
Well, they had two different colors, but they were to very. It was meant to differentiate between the XLR, which goes into a mixer,
yeah,
and then the USB, which was the silver one. And at the
yeah,
time, I think they just a lot of desktop peripherals and everything else was all very silver and clean, so that they did that. But they had the black knobs and the black colors and stuff like that on the XLR one. And really, the
yeah.
only time color comes into it if you're doing any kind of video, and even then, whenever I have been on a video podcast, the only part of the mic that you can see is usually the foam covered um, recording part, the top part. You can't see,
Hmm.
you really can't see the bottom of it that much. But anyway, so yeah, we're excited to kind of improve the audio quality for the listeners, which is always good.
And this is great because it's going to help improve audio quality for my YouTube videos and
Yes, exactly.
maybe if I Twitch stream, maybe.
Speaking of Twitch streams, I'm glad you brought that up. One more plug for our friend Ryan Murphy, who is participating in Extra Life. This is in support of sick kids in Toronto. He's got a stream coming up Saturday, November 9th from 10 a.m. to midnight Eastern Time. That's at twitch.tv/Ryan Murphy CA. And the short URL for donating is bit.ly/Extra Life Ryan. But you can follow R. Murphy on Twitter and find out more, but also check out twitch.tv/Ryan Murphy CA this Saturday. Just go give him a follow now so that when he goes live, you'll get the notification on Saturday. He's going to be going all day long, so it's not like you have to be available at a specific point. I don't know what games he's playing when. He'll probably let people know as that happens. But November 9th from 10 a.m. to midnight Eastern, go check out Ryan and support a good cause. And that is not the only bit of, I guess, business we have at the top of the show. We have a listener email, which is awesome because we
Yay!
don't. I'd say we don't get them that often, but we've had probably 3 or 4 in the last couple months, so that's great. This is from Be Brilliant. Hi, Joel. Love your show, and I listen to it whenever I can. When I heard in one of your most recent episodes that I could get involved in the show, I jumped straight to my feet. I don't really have much to say regarding ideas for the show, but I would like to list a couple of titles from Netflix that, from all I'm aware, you haven't spoken about on the show before. They are Money Heist, Roman Empire, Inside Bill's Brain, Luther, and Monty Python. I know this is not coming from Canada, so not all the shows will be available, but hopefully some are. Thanks, Joel. Keep up the good work, and please consider these titles. Well, thanks very much. Be brilliant. I'm sure that myself, Megan, and the listeners will appreciate the recommendations. I've not seen Money Heist. It sounds familiar to me.
It is on Netflix, though. Before the show, I was
Yep.
actually looking at some of the lists. Money Heist is on there.
Roman
Um,
Empire is on. I've tried to watch it, and it's just not my speed. It's a
I
very
haven't looked at it
it's like
yet.
a documentary, live action documentary sort of
Oh,
thing.
wait. No, I did watch. I mean, I was in the room when it was playing.
Yeah, it
My
wasn't
roommate watched it. Yeah.
not really my thing. Inside Bill's Brain, I have already added to my list because that just seems interesting. It looks like it's a documentary series about Bill Gates and what he's up to, which I think is really really cool. Again, I haven't been in the right mood for it. Luther, I have watched. And I've really enjoyed Luther. I believe I did bring it up on the show, but we've got 337 episodes, and I don't remember when. At some
A lot
point
of
in our history, we
episodes.
have mentioned it. And Monty Python, I've seen them before. It's been a long time. I don't like rewatch them, but I grew up with Monty Python. My dad's a big Monty Python
I
fan, so
love Monty
I'm
Python.
familiar with a lot of stuff.
I think one of my favorite ones. I love. There's a bunch of. They have a bunch of them on here, which is great. I love the Holy Grail. The Holy Grail. The Holy Grail.
Holy
God,
Grail.
I just looked at something else as well.
Mhm.
Like where? So on Netflix, it has Monty Python and the Holy Grail and Monty Python's Life of Brian.
Life of Brian,
And I
yeah.
think I think I was doing Grail and Brian in the same space in my brain.
Hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
Um,
Fetch it,
but the
Amash.
Holy Grail. But yeah, no, Monty Python and the Holy Grail is one of my favorite movies of all time. It just, I don't know. I feel like it was really informative, like a really informative experience in shaping my sense of humor.
Yes, I'm also pretty dry, and I find that Monty Python stuff, well, British humor in general, tends to be pretty
But it was
dry.
also just really goofy.
Yes.
Like just all the, she turned me into a newt. A newt. I got better. just stuff like that is all just fantastic. I don't know. Monty Python, like Holy Grail, is my favorite, and I feel like I need to go back and watch those now. I've been on like a kick of just going back and rewatching older things.
Mm.
So,
Very, very cool. The next thing I wanted to mention at the top of the show is another environment article, and
ooh,
I've been searching around for a while, and so much of the environment news have been circling around Greta Thunberg and the climate strikes and stuff like that, which are usually met with a lot of basically blowhards, causing guff when really they should be looking at it for what it is. But we covered that a few weeks ago. But this is actually a Bloomberg article about an energy breakthrough that could store solar power for decades. And it follows I guess, research behind Malf Poulsen, who is a 40-year-old, I think, Swedish scientist. And one, I feel I understand that my role in life is entertainment and art, and like I'm not a scientist, but like he's my age, and he's discovered a system that uses liquid molecules made up of carbon, hydrogen, and nitrogen. And when they're hit by sunlight, the molecules draw in the sun's energy, holds it until a catalyst triggers it to release it as heat. And so this is basically using very accessible materials, not precious metals, to basically deal a much more efficient way of storing solar power than the current lithium ion batteries that are usually on the market today.
what?
Yeah, so
This is the coolest thing I've ever heard.
it's really neat. Like it's really cool. So right now the trick is to try and get investors to bring it to market. Like he's proven that it works. He just needs to figure out how we can get it, past the financial hurdle. And this is the problem with a lot of this stuff, is that it's usually expensive to get going, but the long
Mm,
term benefits are there. They talk about the Paris Agreement in the article. They go into talk about no precise cost estimates, but is they're aware that on the other side of it, when it's to market, it needs to be affordable. Otherwise, people just won't try it, won't do it.
yeah.
But I mean, think about these kind of panels or this kind of technology available in your home. So all summer long, you could store up energy to then heat your home in the winter with, right? Rather than burning fossil fuels.
Yeah.
And so right now the problem with solar is that the batteries don't last that long. Like you can't build up enough storage on site to last more than, I think it's a week or several hours. It all depends on the size of the generator that you have and the size of the battery pack that you have, and much of that depends on like the amount of land, right? So like if you're in a small
Yeah.
place or if you're next to your neighbors, you've got nowhere to put the batteries. I mean, you may or may not be able to put them in your home. That may or may not be a fire risk. I don't know. Like, so there's all these
Yeah.
different complications. But if it's more efficient and it reduces the size of the battery and the fact that you can just say, no, 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 it's safely stored and will not do anything until this catalyst is applied and then it's reduced as heat. The one thing I wasn't clear about from the article, and maybe just because I'm not really understanding it, is that the way that it works is that the catalyst releases the energy as heat, and they didn't say that it releases it as energy, as electricity. It's only heat.
Oh,
Now, still,
okay.
that goes a long way to heating cars or heating your garage or heating your home, which is again a lot of what people use electricity for in colder climates.
Or
So,
gas.
yeah, exactly.
And, we're trying to not
Yeah.
use as much of that anymore.
Well, and I mean, in electricity, like where do you get your electricity? Is it hydro? Is it coal burning? Like, what's the plant that generates the
Mm,
electricity? So, I mean, imagine if instead of being I would imagine, as with most technology, it's the kind of thing that's going to be rolled out by companies first because they're going to be able to afford it. So imagine it instead of a solar plant needing a large area, or like that wind farm we mentioned in Africa several weeks ago, maybe even months ago now, where they needed this huge landmass that's filled with windmills, 100 windmills to capture enough energy to power, I think it was Kenya. But the thing is, like, if this technology allows more storage from less panels, that means that you could put several plants in key locations across a country and have them be closer to the major cities that need the power, as opposed to having one giant, like if we need a giant solar farm, you're like, well, where do we put it? Right? Because you always run into the thing like people don't want it in their backyard and all this kind of stuff. But if they're not very big, if they're unobtrusive, then
Mhm.
it could be beneficial. And it's a very technical article. They don't go into this. It's very early in the technology, so they don't really go into the
Right.
practical uses of it. But just the way that they explain it and what their mission seems to be, I thought was really really cool. And if this comes out, then I think that it's going to be it's something I'm going to watch because the article is new. It's only from November 4th, so it's just a couple
Oh,
days
it's
ago.
like 2 days ago, yeah.
Yeah. And that's what I mean. Like, this is kind of like breaking stuff. Anyway, I always like to share the positive environmental news when I can, and I thought it
That would
was,
be groundbreaking for the
yeah,
world if that were to get off its feet.
yeah. So it just needs
Like, that
the,
would totally change the course of everything
yeah, just needs the right
in a
investors.
really
It
good
looks
way.
like, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So we'll have the link to the
Well,
Bloomberg article in the show notes as well.
amazing.
So for me this week, I'll start off with a real short conversation because I don't have very many good things to say to say about this. I was struggling to find something to watch over Halloween. I'm not a big horror guy, but I wanted to watch something. And so I watched the latest Hellboy from 2019, starring David Harbour, Mila Jovovich, Ian McShane. David Harbour is the sheriff from Stranger Things, for people to kind of zone in on who I'm talking about. Uh, they did another reboot, another retelling. I don't know why. At this point, everybody kind of knows who Hellboy is. There's been 2 movies, a series of comic books, a bunch of cartoons. I don't know why they felt they needed to reboot it. It might be that they needed to somehow retain the copyright. I don't know. Um, it was R rated, so they were trying to go in the more horror vein, but it was still really, uh, still,
Kitschy?
yeah, it was still really comic booky.
Mm.
And David Harbour, I liked the way that he looked in the makeup. Like, they made Hellboy look a little bit, I don't want to say ugly. He's still appealing as a character, but they made him look more brutish. Like, he wasn't as handsome, sort of thing. Like, they really kind of made him look uh, demon like, as opposed to more human like with demon features. He was more big, heavy brow, really big contacts. Like, his eyes were very piercing. But then David Harbour as an actor brought a lot of, like, I don't know, spoiled adolescence to the character, which didn't really work for me. I kind of, because I mean, Harbour's an older actor anyway, and I say older, he's probably my age, but like he's not a he's much older than the attitude that he was portraying as Hellboy.
Hmm.
And I don't know how true that is to the comics, but if that's the case, then you should be maybe getting a younger actor in the suit anyway. I feel like they should have approached it more like a Spider-Man, where Marvel didn't bother to do a retelling. At some point, you know, Spider-Man in the current Marvel universe jokes about being bit by a spider, but that's it. That's all you get. Like, you just like, yeah, spider, you got powers, okay, and then and that's the end of it. And it's a conversation that Peter Parker has with his best friend. Um, but rather than seeing like the spider bite and the transformation again, we
Yeah.
just go straight into it. And I feel like they could have just picked it up right where they left off. The visuals were cool. Like I said, Harbor looked great. Um, it felt, with the combination of CG that they were doing and practical effects. Some of the bad guys were kind of weird looking, but it it fit the Hellboy universe. Like, you don't want everything to look like super Lord of the Rings. You kind of want these things to be a little bit weirder, a little bit more magic like. Um,
Mm.
but they didn't explain much, like, in terms of the other characters. So this one of the biggest plot twists is this visit that Hellboy gets from Baba Yaga, who, if you don't know horror and folklore, you realize that she's kind of a witch, but you don't know really from where and what the whole deal is and all this kind of stuff. And they explain nothing. They give you the hints that I think Hellboy was in a fight with her in the past and took her eye. But it's like, it's the kind of thing where like they're kind of relying on the fandom to know the comics. And
Or the folklore. I mean, I've heard of
yeah,
Baba
or
Yaga
both.
before from
Yeah.
various folklore.
But
Um,
Hellboy is so weird and twisted. How is the world of Hellboy using Baba Yaga? Right? Like, is
yeah.
she a witch? Is she a demon? Is she a god? Like, how are they implementing that? Or are they being just literal and ripping it from the fairy tale? So it's a little bit broken in that way. The writing was predictable. It's not great. Really horrible one-liners from like '90s action films that everybody is overdone and
Hmm.
done with. Like it's really not great. And also, the film doesn't. The film still takes itself seriously, so the one-liners feel right out of place. Um, it felt crammed, like there was 3 and 4 stories at once, like people couldn't decide what script, or it had a story and then whoever was in charge wanted to fit in this sequence from this comic book series and this sequence from this other story and try to jam it all into one movie. What they should have done was, instead of putting it out in theaters, they should have released it on streaming as like a 6 episode season, because they
Yeah.
like there is Hellboy versus the Giants. There was Hellboy versus Baba Yaga. There was Hellboy versus Mila Jovovich. I don't remember her character from the film. She played some witch that was immortal or something. And so like they had all of these different confrontations and all these different story arcs, including the one that was time and time again with Hellboy, which is like he was found by his dad. He has daddy issues, and then his dad dies at some point. Like it's kind of like the crux of the character.
Right.
In my opinion, even though I love Ian McShane, he did not bring very much to the film other than just having a personification of Hellboy's daddy issues. And so I really felt like it would have been better if he was already dead. Like if we started the movie with he's got issues because his dad died, and he couldn't save him, sort of idea.
Yeah.
So hopefully, um, in the future they'll approach Hellboy in different ways. But it didn't really do very well. It had a budget of 50 million, and worldwide it only brought in 44.6 million. So it
Oof.
didn't even break even worldwide. So people were excited to see, I think, an R-rated Hellboy. That was the selling feature, was like it was dirty and gross and demonesque and horror-esque, and it has gory horror, but it's not suspenseful. It's not scary. It's not thrilling because the writing was subpar. It's gross. I will give you that. Baba Yaga is disgusting. Like it is
Yeah.
the makeup, the combination of makeup and CG stuff. Like she is obviously a person in prosthetics for most of what you're seeing. Probably her tongue might be CG, but like it is gross. Uh,
Hmm.
like she's basically everything is sagging. Like she's got these really disgusting saggy boobs. I mean, we're talking like down to her navel sort of stuff. Like it just, and she's dressed like she's the hottest thing this side of 90210. It's like,
Right.
but everything is like it's rotten flesh hanging off a skeleton. Like it is
Right.
disgusting. But then when she fights Hellboy, and this is where the film gets some points for being inventive, she fights on all fours like a spider. So she goes down with her
Oh,
hands,
weird.
and it's like her hips are double jointed, and then her neck is double jointed. So her head kind of like clicks up and sits on the top of the back of her shoulders, and then she's scurrying around like on all fours like a spider would. And you're just like, wow,
Oh, I
that
don't
is,
like that at all.
yeah. Have you ever seen The Grudge? Have you ever seen the
Oh,
clips?
yep.
Yeah.
Nope. That's
So
enough. You can stop
so,
that right there.
so that's what it felt like. And she has these knives that so like there's all this kind of stuff where just like, well, I want to know more about Baba Yaga, but she's one of like 4 villains in the film. And it's like, so they don't get any time to get a real backstory outside of
Mm.
monologuing. So anyway, it's not great. You're not missing much, but it's the kind of thing, if you like Hellboy and you want to have some cool visuals on in the background, it's good. It's well done. Like it's well executed in terms of the filming and the special effects and the thought behind them, the imagination. But everything else, which is unfortunately what makes a film good, like the story, is just it's subpar. It's
Subpar.
not really good.
I heard a lot of people had some complaints about the makeup too. Like I think the people who are hardcore fans of Hellboy are just hardcore fans of Ron
Hmm.
Perlman and Guillermo del Toro and
Mm,
that whole crew. Because I mean, like I think that was one of the first real comic book movies. Like when I didn't even hear about Hellboy until the movies became a thing.
yeah.
Like they were, I don't know if they were very popular comics, and like hardcore comic guys would probably know Hellboy before it
Yeah.
became a movie. But for the majority of people, their first interaction with Hellboy was the Ron
Hmm.
Perlman movies
Yeah.
with. Del Toro directing.
I know that
Um,
Hellboy got a bit of a pickup in terms of the comics because when Disney's Atlantis came out,
oh
it
yes,
had a similar look because Mignola, who invented and drew Hellboy for years, um, is was a production designer on Atlantis.
Atlantis.
Yeah,
Oh really? Oh
yeah.
yes, no, I
He's
see
a
that now.
character concept
Yeah,
artist on it. He didn't do any of the final animation designs, I don't think, but they based a lot of the animation designs on his original concept drawings.
I can I can see that. Yeah, I
Yeah.
can see it for sure. Just
Um,
I love that movie, so
oh, it's one of my favorites.
it's one of my favorite
Yeah.
Disney movies.
And as a result, Hellboy comics got a lot of attention because everybody knew that Mignola was on Atlantis. But then, like I said, I think shortly after that, the Hellboy movies came out.
Hmm. But no, I remember a lot of people like seeing photos of him in costume and being like, it feels like the makeup is wearing him, not the other way around. Like I don't doubt that the makeup was good, but I don't think people felt that he could wear it as well.
Hmm.
And Ron Perlman just has this very unique face. I wouldn't say that Ron Perlman's like a generically attractive dude.
No,
Um,
he's got Ron Perlman has got the right skeletal structure for a
he
character like
does.
Hellboy,
He
whereas
he was built.
they had
Yeah,
to
he was
pour a
built for
lot
Hellboy.
onto David Harbour, right? Like David Harbour got in really good shape for the film, which I thought was weird because they had to put a whole suit over him anyway, which showed
I
off
mean, the suit was probably heavy.
fake muscles.
Yeah.
But the thing with David Harbour is that they had to give him, or they didn't have to, but they gave him a much more pronounced chin and brow, and so Harbour was under a lot more makeup than Perlman was.
And I think that's why a lot of people felt like the makeup is wearing him and not the other way around because they
Mm-hmm.
had to build up that skeletal structure so much more.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Ron Perlman just already has a very heavy brow and already has a very heavy set jaw. I did see the photos and like the makeup didn't look terrible, but it definitely didn't hit home as much for me because I love the Hellboy films. Like I watched them again recently. They
Oh,
don't
really?
hold
Okay.
up in terms of graphics
No, they wouldn't.
at all. Like, there's some graphics it's like, oh, you can tell that that was done way back in
Mm-hmm.
early 2000s, but the makeup is all practical makeup for all of the primary characters and it looked incredible. And it looked natural. Like it looked like they fit. And Doug Jones is in it and I am a diehard Doug Jones fan.
Right.
Like such an underrated actor in my opinion. Like he's so talented and I could go on for days and I won't because he's so great. But I don't know, like I might give it a watch. I'll see. I don't know, do you think it's worth watching for people who haven't seen it?
I mean, if you're into that kind of stuff, because you like makeup and because you like that kind of thing, you'd probably enjoy at least the fantasy aspect of it.
Hmm.
I There's a lot of witch type stuff in it, and a lot of like they try to. I mean, I don't know enough about witches, but they do a lot of like they pretend like it's all history and meant like
Okay.
all that kind of stuff.
See, I
They
know a lot about witches, but
Yeah.
I also don't like how witch history is portrayed in a lot of media because it's not
Well, I mean,
accurate.
and this is the thing is that they take all of it to their to the to suit their story. They twist it to be, however. I like the fact that there are giants and that the English have been fighting the giants for years and that there's the secret society of giant fighters. Like there's stuff like that was neat.
Hmm.
The giants are CG. They're I don't know 20 feet tall. Like they're big, but they're not crazy big. It's like some of the bigger bad guy or troll characters in like Lord of the Rings. Like they're 3 times the size of a human sort of idea.
Right.
Uh, but even then, they're not. They you don't like they say like, oh, there's giants roaming the countryside, and then you're just kind of like, well, how the hell do these things hide? How does the general public in a world of cell phones not know that these exist? Because these are not. They don't give you any explanation as to how they are not seen by the average person, which I think is strange. So there's just
Hmm.
so much there's so much about Hellboy that they explain that they don't need to, and then there's so much that they don't explain about the world that they really should because it would have been interesting. But it's the kind of thing where like this battle with the giants is like it's a 20-minute 30-minute part of the sequence or whatever. It could have been an entire episode. Like they could have turned this into a series and given the giants like the 1 or 2 episode arc that they deserved to explain them, to deal with it, to have it be more than what it was. Um,
Yeah.
because I think that's the problem is that the relationships and the emotional weight that they want you to experience do not get time to develop, right? Hellboy has a history with Baba Yaga only because you're told that he has a history with Baba
You
Yaga.
don't see the
You don't see
history.
the history. Whereas if they had done it in like a series, it would have been like, well, maybe the first episode is the Baba Yaga, and then maybe she's revealed to be super involved with the plot in the last episode, and everybody goes, oh, Baba Yaga's back. You know, like that kind of a thing. But it's like,
Yeah.
she's back. And he's just like, he has this visit from Baba Yaga, and he's like he's exclaiming it in the was it the BPRD? I can't remember the name of the acronym for the
Yeah.
place they works at.
Yeah, BPRD,
Yeah,
I think, yeah.
so he's walking through, he's like, well, I just had a visit from Baba Yaga. And he says it like everybody is supposed to know who the hell he's talking about. And you as an audience member goes, oh, that's who that is. Like, because like it doesn't make any sense. Like he says it like it's old hat, but it's like there's been no mention of her at any other point in the film. And so,
Mm.
so it's a little bit weird in that way, and also in the way that she visits him. It's like a dream that becomes a reality, and it's just the kind of thing where it's like, well, and what, like, none of this is being explained. Like you're not giving me the boundaries within you're going to tell your story. That's what I think. That's the problem, is that they left so much of it to just um not the imagination, but they left so much of it unexplained, where it's like, well, you're Hellboy, and in this universe you're pulling from all these different folklores and demonology and all this kind of stuff and trying to make your own story, but you're not giving me the limits.
Mm.
And then when it comes to the plot, it's like CW superhero show where they beat you over the head with like, this is the bad guy. We've got to stop the bad guy. Is the bad guy going to do a bad thing? Yep. Okay, we should stop that. And it's like, okay, I know that part. Like, I can see that
Yeah.
coming a mile away. Why are you explaining all that when really I want you to explain where the hell the giants come from? you know? So
Yeah.
again, like it's I finished it. It's not like it was so terrible that I turned it off. But it's one of those things where I left it going like, well, that was what I was like, that ended exactly how I expected it to, and I have learned nothing new about Hellboy. I guess is what,
Right.
it's
Yeah.
I kind of wish that films, when they are rebooted in that way, would acknowledge the fact that this thing has existed in pop culture, and we live in a world where the internet has allowed people to consume this stuff and all the facts about this stuff in many different forms. Whether it's,
Mm.
watching old movies, whether it's reading books, whether it's listening to podcasts, whether it's, fan art, whatever it is. If you're a fan of something, and you can be very easily saturated by it. And so I find that too many films are written for the people that have no idea who Hellboy is. But the people going to this movie have an idea who Hellboy is before they buy a
Yeah.
ticket. There's not a lot of people that go, Hellboy, what the heck's that? That sounds like fun. Like, these day and age, that's not your core audience. And I feel like they should have maybe banked on doing a niche film as opposed to trying to appeal to a broader audience. And
Yeah.
this could also be like the director wanting to do a niche film and the producer saying like, nope, we want this to make as much money as possible, which means you've got to water it down.
Yeah.
I don't know. It just felt, it had that clear overproduced stamp of like too many spoons in
Mm.
the pot.
Right.
That's kind
Too
of
many
how.
cooks in the kitchen.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway,
Yeah.
so that's my short, not so short rant on Hellboy 2019. What have you been watching the last little while?
Like I said, I went back and watched a bunch of older stuff. I tried watching a show on Crave called Rain. Don't even turn it on. It's awful. I got maybe 20 minutes into the first episode before I was like, nope. It's supposed to be about Mary Queen of Scots. It doesn't seem like it is, because all
Hmm.
the actors are British, and Mary Queen of Scots is very evidently Scottish. But anyway, it's kind of meant to be about her like entry into the French court when she married Francis Philip. I don't remember what his name is.
Hmm.
The French prince essentially, and so like, but she was already like a queen of Scotland. But it was basically like solidifying, um, alliances and whatnot. But the dialogue was just atrocious, and the historical costume, like everything seemed pretty cohesive in and of itself. but I had no idea what heckin' time period we were supposed to be in until it told me,
Mm.
because the costumes were just not of the appropriate time period and there was a lot of loose hair. And I was like, and no women would have her hair loose at any time in, you know, the 1500s. That was just not a thing. So watching it with my, very, very well knowledgeable roommate who's really up on historical fashion, uh, because she has a degree in costuming. She was like, "Yeah, none of this is correct." But I think the tipping point was just the fact that there was just like this whole three, like maybe I'm over exaggerating. It felt like 3 goddamn minutes of the same dialogue happening back and forth, and it was just repeated, and the acting was so terrible and wooden. Anyway, don't watch it; it's awful. But good show that I watched was, well, good but weird. I was watching one on Netflix called Living with Yourself, and it stars Paul Rudd, of Ant-Man fame, and it's like a 6 to 8 episode miniseries. I think each episode is about half an hour to 45 minutes each, so it's an easy read. Um, and it's about, so it's this guy named Miles, and he is kind of stuck in a rut. Like, he's tired at work, like he's kind of been, like the fallen star at work. Him and his wife are having a bit of a contentious relationship right now. Like, she really wants a baby and she keeps reminding him, "Hey, you have fertility appointments, please go to those." And he just keeps forgetting, and just generally it's just not a happy time for. It's like, "Hey, I know about the spa. You should go check it out." I went and I feel totally rejuvenated. His life totally changed around. And he drives up to it and he just watches some guy walk out and like look around the world and just like breathe in a big breath of fresh air. And it like just looks like he's glowing. Like, he just looks like the happiest dude ever. And so he's like, "All right, what do I have to lose?" He goes in, and it's an expensive spa treatment. It's like something like $25,000 or something to go in. So he takes it out of his wife's account, and they were using that to save for their fertility treatments. And he wakes up and he feels so great. He just feels so much better about everything. He comes home when he makes his wife dinner, and she's like, "What's going on?" Because I guess for the past 4 years of their relationship, things had not been super great. Um, but you find out afterwards that he was actually cloned. That's all in the first episode. He was cloned. Like, there was like a really sophisticated cloning, and they just basically take all the good stuff from your DNA and leave it all the bad stuff. And what you find out is that they were actually killing off the original people and just letting the clones live, and the clones don't know that they're clones, um, until like the Paul Rudd runs into himself. Like, you see him like pulling himself out of a very shallow grave where he was wrapped in a plastic bag, and like ends up finding himself in his house. Like, he goes home to it, like he's walking from like where he was buried in the woods back to his home, and he hears someone upstairs with his wife, and he's like, "She's cheating on me." It's this whole big thing. And then he ends up getting in a fight with himself, and he's like, "What the fuck?" Excuse my French. But it's a really weird concept. It's I feel like only Paul Rudd could pull this off in a way that doesn't sound completely ridiculous. It's weird. It's kind of goofy, but it's got like a weird dark humor about it, because it really focuses on like, humanity and your place in the world and life and death. And there are it doesn't feel like there's a lot of stakes, but it's just more of just like, how is this going to play out? Like, this is just a weird, you know, group of players, especially when like, he goes to a work party that his wife's at with his clone and shows up, and he's just like, "Hey," and finishes the joke that he was telling, and she's just like, "What is happening?" um and it's something. It's a really interesting show. It's got some weird tonal issues. The last couple of episodes, I won't go too far into it, but the last couple of episodes just had some weird dance numbers that I wasn't really expecting.
Wow.
Oh, yeah. It's something. I mean, I definitely say it's worth watching if it's on your Netflix, wherever you may live.
Is it meant to be a
Definitely
comedy?
worth a watch. I don't know. I laughed. I definitely laughed, but then a lot of the times I was just like, "What's going on?"
Hmm.
Like, it's I think it's meant to be kind of like a dark comedy or a twisted comedy a little bit. Um there's definitely something very askew about it. Um, very very askew. I kind of. Did you ever watch Russian Doll?
No, but I've seen it
That's
on
that's
Netflix and
that's
here it's
also one
good.
that's kind of askew as well.
Hmm.
Very good, like very interesting, but it just gets progressively weirder as it goes on. And this one was kind of the same. Like it just got progressively a little weirder. So it had a good ending, but it also had a very open ending. So it could just stop from where it was, but it could continue on to have another season. I'd be fine either way, honestly, with it. It was a good stopping point, but it left a lot of other stuff open,
Hmm.
which was good. But it's kind of like dealing with yourself and like if you have self-loathing and how to manage that and
Right.
um so it does have some dark themes to it. I definitely would say it's not meant for children. Um, I don't know if you should watch it if you're in a bad place. It's not that dark, but at the same time, like I don't know, there was a couple moments where I was watching, I'm just like, wow, I feel like some people might suffer from suicidal tendencies or something, might have a hard time dealing with some of this, but
Right. So slight
because you just don't
trigger
know what would
warning.
be
Yeah.
yeah, I don't even know if it would be necessarily a trigger warning, but
Mm.
because it doesn't talk about that directly, but there's enough there's enough to have it be very strongly suggested.
Right. Yeah. I
Like
mean, and
not that you should, but like that
hmm,
it is a because it's the same person but in two separate bodies, right?
hmm.
Kind of. I don't know. It's really weird. I would say like use your judgment. Watch it if you don't feel comfortable continuing. Stop it because you're able to do that. Um, but I liked it. I would definitely be interested in watching more, but I was definitely left feeling kind of like, huh, I feel funny now after watching this. Like it's just kind of just like it left me with a weird impression. I'm not quite sure how to quantify it, but
Mm.
worth a watch. It's funny, but it's dark. Dark comedy. That's my summary of it.
Interesting. Because I like Paul Rudd in the Marvel films, but I can't say I go out of my way to watch any of the things that he's been in comedy wise. Because he's
Yeah.
not often, as far as I know, until Ant Man, he wasn't really a big leading man. He was always because he was like part of the ensemble cast for like something about summer vacation. There was also I think it was is it something Sarah Marshall? Forgetting Sarah Marshall?
Oh, forgetting Sarah
Something like
Marshall.
that. I think he's in that. But so like
Was
that,
he?
I think so. But he plays like somebody's
Oh.
friend. Like he's not like a major, like
Oh,
yeah,
he's probably the main character's friend
something
who
like
tells him
that.
to go on vacation or something.
Like
Yeah.
it, but like he just seems to always be like the buddy, or one of the
Yeah.
one. If it's a funny movie, it'd be something like where he's not in Hangover, I don't think, but it would be that kind of a thing where he'd be one of six people of six stories in this film, not like the lead, but like one of them.
Yeah.
But even then, like I find like I really enjoy the Ant Man movies, but I also find his roles in the Avengers when Ant Man shows up to be more awkward than the Ant Man movies. Like he's a little bit more of a leading man with heavy decisions to make. And then for whatever reason, he tends to be really goofy in the Avengers, and I like
They
him
kind of do
better.
that with Thor though too. Like Thor just ended up
Yeah.
being really goofy towards the end, and they still did him dirty. They still did my dude dirty.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I know what you
Um,
mean.
but like I think I don't know because the serious parties of that cast are meant to be Captain America,
Yeah, yeah.
right? And sometimes Tony Stark. Like they're the bantery ones. Like when it comes to the Avengers stories, they're the bantery ones, and Natasha's the mysterious one, and she kind of does quips here and there, and there's so many key players in the Avengers that I think they have to focus in on one thing that makes them memorable. And I think one thing that makes Ant-Man memorable is that the character is a little bit funny. Like
Hmm.
he just seems like an awkward dude. Um he I would definitely say in Living with Yourself he does play up the awkward. Like there's you can see some of the Ant-Man side in there. Like he's just like a really like peppy sunshiny, like his clone is a very very peppy sunshiny happy-go-lucky kind of dude. um and he definitely plays up the kind of like awkwardness, funniness, like exuberance that
Yeah,
he would have in Ant-Man, but then he also has more of the serious stuff when he's the original, because his original self is a little bit dark.
Mm.
I guess that's not the right word for it either. He's just darker in comparison to his clone.
Right.
So
Yeah.
like they're literally the night and day of each other.
Hmm.
Um, so it's I would definitely say it's got a weird mix. It's got a mix of like the straight man deadpan delivery as well as the comedic delivery. So he's like playing off of himself, which is very interesting. Also, this I would say that like the filming and the blending of scenes, because he's there's oftentimes you see them both on camera,
Mm.
and the eye lines are really excellent, and like there's a lot. It didn't feel like it was. I mean, it felt like Paul Rudd playing two different people that are the same person, but
Right.
it also didn't feel like it was really awkward. It almost could have been like, oh, they cast twins for this.
Right. Like it didn't
It
feel like one of
had
those
it.
Eddie Murphy movies where he plays like 12 different
Yes,
people.
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
it definitely felt like it could have been, knowing Paul Rudd, it's not twins, but it felt like it could have been. You know what I
Hmm.
mean?
Yeah.
It wasn't like Lindsay Lohan in The Parent Trap where it was like, you know, she's the same person, right?
Yeah.
Even that too
Yeah.
bad, but the eye lines were great, and like I would, for the most part, I really enjoyed it. Like by the end, like there was the last couple episodes, I was laughing a whole bunch, but there were definitely a few moments where Colin and I were just like, what's what, wow, this just took a weird tonal shift, and I'm not sure what happened from.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like unfortunately we do get that uh awkward for the sake of awkward or weird for the sake of
Mm,
weird or uh sometimes in cases like Game of Thrones and other films and TV shows and streaming, they have the reins are off. They're not answering to networks. It's these companies that are
yeah,
making their own stuff. And while I appreciate the spaghetti that's being thrown at the wall, we as consumers end up seeing sometimes it sticks and sometimes it doesn't. And sometimes the noodle kind of hits but then like hangs off a little bit.
yeah,
Where it's like, this is really cool, but what was that? Like, what just happened there? That was
yeah,
like it feels like it's good that they're pushing the envelope, but sometimes we get to see a little bit too much of the process of like what works and what doesn't, because especially with Netflix, my gosh, they put out a lot of content. And we see the difference with different platforms, some putting out very few shows, other putting out a ton of shows in various different countries and all this kind of stuff. So it right now I think we're in this heyday of like everyone is firing it on all cylinders, and it's going to
yeah,
be great for people that like everything, but for people like you and I that have a little bit more of a narrow kind of like focus on what we enjoy and how we enjoy it, I feel like it's going to be a little bit hard until the audience is found for these particular things. Like for example, I find that Netflix is doing a lot of horror stuff. There's a lot of like thriller,
yeah.
horror, dark things.
Which
Um,
is a little too late because Halloween's over.
yeah,
Netflix.
exactly. And it just, well, they seem like Halloween just seems to be fall. Like all until Christmas, it's just Halloween.
Yeah.
But which
Except
is,
now, I tell that to big retail chains. I walked into Walmart. I literally walked into Walmart
yeah.
on Halloween to see if I could pick up some extra odds and ends,
Mm,
just before I went out for the night. And they were already pulling all their Halloween stuff. They were putting out the Christmas stuff
mm,
on Halloween. They were in the
yep.
process
Hmm.
of putting out Christmas on October 31st. And I was like, for God, what?
Yeah.
Wait until the 11th at least.
That's
Please.
my big thing in Canada is waiting until after Remembrance Day. I feel like is
I'm not
the
sure if it's the
right
same
thing
day
to
in the
do.
States as well. It's Veterans Day, I
I think it's
think,
veteran. They call it. It's the same day.
or Armistice Day.
They call it this. They call it something different, but I
Yeah.
believe it's the same date. Um, but yeah, like I really feel that they should wait until the 12th or 13th
Oh,
before they put
100%.
stuff out. Really, in the
100%.
States, I'm surprised that it's not closer to the American Thanksgiving, because really American Thanksgiving is like the start of the Christmas season for a lot of things.
Yeah.
Um, and Canada, of course, Thanksgiving happens before Halloween.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's. I feel like whatever your Thanksgiving date is in the States, 25th, 26th, whatever that weekend is. I feel like 2 weeks before that, it's fine. You got to give retail a chance to plan and put out things and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think 2 weeks to putting out Christmas stuff going into into the Thanksgiving holiday is fine. I always found it so strange that Thanksgiving is so Christmassy and so focused on in the U.S. because I just feel like people are traveling twice back home to see family. That seems to be how media presents it. It's like everybody's on a plane going
Mm.
home no matter what for Thanksgiving, but then like 4 weeks later you're doing the exact same thing at Christmas time. It's like it feels like when I was a kid I thought that Americans had a whole month off where they went home at Thanksgiving and they just stayed home until until Christmas
Yeah.
and just worked at home or just lived, we're on
It's a
vacation.
huge thing.
Yeah.
Man, I saw a photo on Twitter just before I started the show. My friend Misha is a she's dual citizen. So she's actually from the States, but she's living here now with her family. And she in one city, I'm not even sure what city it was, but I guess every year she was like, it's like a month, it's like 3 weeks before Thanksgiving. What's going on? But I guess there's like traffic of people already getting ready to leave for Thanksgiving
Oh
in
my
this one
gosh.
particular city. And it's like a 6-lane highway and it is packed bumper to bumper in a very, very large city in the States and like going in both directions. It's nuts. I don't, or maybe it's just people trying to get ready for Thanksgiving. I have no idea. I just know that there was something about Thanksgiving, and then every year they're just like, surely another lane will fix the problem. And it's like they've been doing that every single year for the last 10 years. They've just been steadily extending all of these highways by like another lane. And I'll have to send you the picture. It's nuts. I was like, excuse me. For some that just I can't quantify that many people in my brain and having Thanksgiving be that busy. That's it.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I can sort of understand it. I get a little bit of a skewed view. I did spend some time around the holidays in Toronto one year, and the amount of people out and around in big city centers when you're not used to it, it's overwhelming. Like I was just like, where did these people come from? Like, do they have nothing else
Yeah.
better to do? But then you just kind of realize that you go from a massive, and I mean, when I say massive, I mean spread out. Like the Halifax Regional Municipality has got 400,000 people, but we're talking about Hubbards to Lawrencetown. Like it's not in the city.
Yeah.
Like it
No.
involves a lot of county area as well. And then you go
Mhm.
into some place with Toronto that has like millions. I think it's got a couple million.
Yeah.
And you're in like the suburbia where there's arteries that just go to this one big shopping mall, and you're just like, oh my god, like everybody and their dog is out doing Christmas shopping right now. And it's just
Yeah.
like it's just like you forget sometimes out this way how dense those cities are, and they're not that much better in terms of their planning than where we are, right? It's like no one sets up a city and goes, this is going to be 2 million people eventually. Like it just sort of happens. And
Yeah.
often the population grows faster than the infrastructure can handle. And it's just traffic is a huge thing. I saw a really good post the other day. It was just a little meme, and it was 200 people in cars, 200 people on 3 buses, 200 people on one commuter rail train or 2 grain cars or something like that. And you saw the space that it took up on the road. Like the cars
Mm.
went farther than you can see. The buses were like 3 or 4 buses long, so it was about the length of a city block. And then the train, of course, you could see everybody. It was like putting 200 people on a plane. And
Yeah.
the caption was like, "You're not stuck in traffic. You are traffic."
Yeah.
And I was
Yeah.
like, "Yeah, no, it makes sense." I mean, as somebody that has I'd say in recent years, notice profoundly the lack of not having a vehicle, but I'm 40. I've never owned a car. I am lucky enough that I work from home, and I've never had a job that has been so far away that I couldn't bus to it within 40 minutes.
Mhm.
And so I understand that I'm a unique case. It's a nice thing to not have that, environmental, and personal cost,
Yeah.
of a car. Would I like, transit to be better? Of course I would. But it's one of those things where like I'm just so conditioned to transit that it's just not a thing for me. Like it just ends up being part of my day when I have to go out. Whereas I
Yeah.
find that so many people rely on their cars for everything. That it's a strange hurdle when I see those kind of memes. I think, well, yeah, I've been doing this for years. Like it's not that hard, and um, it's not something that really in a big city center it wouldn't affect your freedom, especially if you have a train. Like if you get a subway system, like
Oh my god,
when I was
subway
in New
systems are
oh
great.
man, when I was in New York, getting around the subway was amazing. It was something crazy like $4 US for a day pass, and you can ride it all day long. And so like,
Yeah.
we're talking about a city that's like 70 blocks in something like 20 minutes. It took us 4 hours to walk 70 blocks when we decided, because when I was there, my buddy Sean and I, we took the train all the way up to like the MoMA or something. And then our hotel was down on like near Wall Street. So we walked back because it was a beautiful day and we wanted to see the city. And it took longer than we expected, but it was still a good thing to do because we felt like we got our bearings. Like we understood just how big it was. We understood where things were. We walked by Times Square. Like we knew kind of like the lay of the land. So we're glad that we did it. But my gosh, after that, we're just like, nope, not walking that again. Like, let's hop on the subway and get there in 10 minutes because they travel at crazy speeds. And even then, like my second time to New York, we bussed in from Queens, and that didn't take very long, And granted, buses run more frequently in New York than they do in places like Halifax. So like you can get on a bus that's going down Fifth Avenue like every 5 or 10 minutes. Like it's really not that difficult
Yeah.
if you're
Yeah.
not branching off and going into like Brooklyn or like if you're not going to various places off Manhattan. But if you're just going up downtown, like it's very easy to do it. I mean, you can get stuck in traffic just like everybody else, but like it's you're gonna get stuck in the traffic on a bus versus in a car anyway. Like it just you see people. I'll be riding a bus, and very often I remember when I used to work in animation, I would be walking to the ferry, and I would see the bus, and I would pass it, and then it would pass me, and then I would see the same bus at the next stop sign, because the traffic was so backed up that I was walking faster than everybody stuck in traffic. And
Yeah.
it's for me now. Granted, I live close enough. Again, this is kind of like a perfect scenario. I live close enough on the Dartmouth side of the city that when I take the ferry home, it's a 10-15 minute walk from the ferry to home. So in a fair weather situation, it's really simple for me to avoid the bottleneck of the bridge and commute via ferry.
Yeah.
And for those of you that aren't familiar with Halifax, it's a person commuter ferry. It's not a ferry that you can drive on. It's just it's like a ferry bus. So it packs a bunch of people on it, and it goes back and forth across the harbor. But it means I
Yeah.
don't have to drive across the
It's a
bridge
water bus.
or bus across the bridge, because it doesn't matter whether you're on a bus or a car. You're stuck in bridge traffic. It's 4 lanes, and everybody in Dartmouth has to get across the bridge. Like that's just the way it is.
And
So
lanes change direction. Like if you're trying to get back into Dartmouth, like
yes, yeah, there's a
well, it's like
switch.
4 lanes total, and you have one going into the city and one going out of the city or something.
Yeah. So
Um,
on the main, I should say, on the McDonald Bridge, there's 3 lanes. In the morning, it's 2 Halifax bound, and in the evening, it's 2 Dartmouth bound. Basically, they give
ah,
more room to the people going to and going home from work, because a lot of people live in Dartmouth but work in Halifax, or
yeah.
or beyond. Like depends on where, but so yeah. I mean, it's one of those things that always strikes me as very odd, that more people don't take transit. But anyway, we've gone on this crazy transit rant. Um, but
It's
yeah,
us. It
yeah,
happens.
yeah. Who knows? Sidebar. Who knew this was going to happen?
Right.
Now you know the geeky truth about busing in Halifax. I'm not even sure how we got on this. Oh, holiday
I don't
traffic.
even
Holiday
holiday
traffic. Yeah,
traffic.
yeah, yeah. We should wrap things up with the Internet Minute, which is brought to you by our bean counters. So Cosmic Dancer is currently one of the bean counters here on the Citadel Cafe. She is a patron. And you can be a patron too. The Citadel Cafe is 100% listener supported. If you are getting value out of the show, you can consider putting a little bit of value back in. It's completely up to you. You can visit patreon.com/the Citadel Cafe. Joining at any level will get you an invite to the member-only Discord server. And there are multiple levels with other rewards like Discord roles, bonus episodes, access to specific chat rooms where we talk about, what's happening with the show, all that kind of stuff. Current patron count is at 17. I always like to be one more than we were the previous month. So we were 17 in October. We're 17 in November. I'd like to be 18 by Christmas, maybe even 20. Who knows? But we need another 1 or 2 more people to make that happen. My pick this week is a new Lego Ideas set. It is the 21320 Dinosaur Fossils build. I love it when
Ooh.
Lego Ideas, these are things that not average, but a uniquely talented Lego builder has made this set and submitted it to Lego. They don't work for Lego. They're an independent creator. And then Lego, through Lego Ideas, sometimes publishes winning builds. And this is really cool. Like I saw this and I was like, where was this when I was 8? So this is a kind of a sculpture build of 3 iconic dinosaur skeletons. There's a Tyrannosaurus Rex, a Triceratops, and a Pterodon, and they are kind of like large, medium, and then the Pterodon is actually quite small because of how skinny the wing bones are. So it's not a very big build, but it's actually pretty reasonably priced. Usually Lego sets can be super expensive, but because of how intricate this is, and the fact that it's around $90 taxes in, it retails for 80 Canadian, but it's 910 pieces. And I
That's
always,
really good actually
yeah,
for Lego.
when you look at Lego,
Wow.
I usually they retail for around 20 to 25 cents per piece. And I look at it as like a play experience and how long is this going to take you to build versus how much money that you paid for it. But not only is this very intricate, like all these little teeny pieces that you have to use to build these skeletons, and they look very, very detailed, which is great. Um, you're also going to learn a lot, I think. If you were a kid building these, you'd have to look at like how and where rib cages are, what hip bones are, where the big bones are in the feet, how dinosaurs stand, like they stand on their toes, and then you see like the ankle and all this kind of stuff. Anyway, it's really, really cool, right down to the tail pieces and stuff. And what I really like about these Lego Idea builds is that the builders have to use existing Lego pieces from other sets. It's not like there was a build that was Triceratops horn and they just used those. They're picking up like claws from like the Bionics builds and there's Lego what's not connects, what's the name of the Lego Technic pieces. So you have like sideways hinges and things. So there's all these different kind of techniques that go into these Lego Ideas builds because the builders have to be so inventive with how they create them. And all of the dinosaurs come with their own stands with a little name plate. So it's very much like a museum display. I would love to see these in one of these crazy builders on YouTube that has their own Lego city. If they happen to have a museum, can you imagine how cool it would be to have
Oh my
these
god.
in your museum? Like
Oh my god.
build a hall large enough to have these in them. Anyway,
Oh my
it's
god.
totally worth checking out. Lego set 21320. And I think it's fantastic. If you've got a young boy or girl this Christmas that is into dinosaurs, then this is a 100%
Or
get, I
just
think.
if you like Lego
Well, yeah.
as well.
Yeah, but I love the fact that they approach something so outside of what Lego does so well, which is buildings, vehicles, stuff like that. And I like the fact that it's not alive dinosaurs. Like you're not building a T-Rex that's supposed to be alive and walking around like it's a skeleton, which I think gave them probably more freedom, right? In
Mm-hmm.
terms of the design, because they're building the bones as opposed to trying to make it look like a live thing that's made out of Lego. These look much cooler because they're skeletons, I think. Anyway, I really, really liked it.
That's awesome.
Well, that wraps up another episode of the Citadel Cafe. You can find out more about the show, links to things that Megan and I talked about at thecitadelcafe.com. Music for the show was composed by Kevin MacLeod. You can, of course, email us at thecitadelcafe@gmail.com or find us on Twitter and Facebook. You can find the podcast on your favorite podcast app. Just look for us by name on iTunes, Android, Stitcher, or Spotify. You can share the podcast, of course. Word of mouth is the best way to share the show with your friends. Just poke a friend in the arm and say, hey, they're really cool. You should listen to it. My name is Joel Duggan. You can find everything I am doing online at joelduggan.com. That includes my illustration and design portfolio and my online shop. Hint, hint, Christmas is coming. You can reach out and hire me if you want to just drop me a line. I do a lot of illustration and custom design work for people online. Check out my other podcast about Minecraft. It's at thespunchunks.com. And I am very easy to find on social media. It is just my name, Joel Duggan. Look me up wherever you can find me, I guess. Right now, I'll point you towards Twitch. I've been hanging out and doing a lot of streaming. I have 3 big streams from last weekend hanging out on Twitch right now. You can check out the VODs at twitch.tv/Joel Duggan. Megan, where can people find you and all of the cool things that you do online?
People can find me online on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube at Megan Townsend. And I do have a Twitch channel that I've been using for watching mostly, which is just twitch.tv/Megan Townsend. But I might be putting some stuff on there eventually, so we'll see what happens.
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned.
You've been listening to the Citadel Cafe, where we are fast, easy, and cheap, but you can only pick 2. Pick Megan and me, really. Come on.